Coming up on 2020 on ID, a beloved kindergarten teacher.
She's a great teacher and she loved everybody.
Struck down in her prime.
Where's your emergency?
A husband goes to help his wife with her broken down car, finds her body in the roadway.
As I got closer, I realized it was Justine.
Was it really a hit and run?
Why on earth did she get out of her car?
There's a lot more questions than answers.
A town gripped by rumors and suspicion.
People aren't saying things because they're scared.
There's no question about it. Somebody knows.
This is murder we're talking about.
Can there be justice for Justine?
As long as people remember you, you live.
Welcome to 2020 on ID. I'm John Quinones. A mysterious death on the back roads of Virginia. It had all the hallmarks of a hit-and-run accident that might never be solved. But as investigators and family probed deeper, they began to have doubts about how Justine Abshire died. Maybe she wasn't hit by a car at all. As Jay Shadler first reported in 2008, Justine's family knew their efforts wouldn't bring her back. Nonetheless, they were determined to uncover the truth about her death.
1:19 a.m., November 3rd, 2006. Eric Abshire says he gets a cell phone call from his wife. Her car is broken down. Come and get me.
I got my bike and I went riding down there to see if I could find out what was wrong with her car. I turned onto Taylorsville Road. I saw something laying in the road, which I assumed was an animal. And as I got closer, I realized it was Justine in the road.
What a terrible, unbelievable, unimaginable thing to come to.
Yes.
Did your whole life just suddenly disappear underneath you?
There are no words to describe that. That's a situation nobody, unless they've ever lived through it, could describe. I just held her and talked to her.
Orange County 911, where's your emergency?
The 911 call is made from this nearby house.
Andersville Road, man just came out and said his wife just got hit by a car.
Within an hour, Justine is declared dead at the scene. From multiple trauma caused by being struck by a motor vehicle.
The person that was operating the vehicle that struck Mrs. Abshire left the scene.
The local and state police have a fatal hit-and-run case.
Live from the Charlottesville Newsplex.
The local media has a news story.
A husband goes to help his wife with her broken down car, finds her body in the roadway.
State police are investigating this as a fatal hit-and-run.
Justine's car was located on the shoulder of the road. Her body, however, was found about 600 feet away around a bend.
About right here would be her shoes, and then about up in here would be her cell phone. And she was actually laying.
Among the first on the scene that night is Jesse Abshire, Eric's brother.
Oh, probably about right in here. Oh, feet in this direction, head in this direction. Eric was on his knees with his head laying on top of her, crying.
Had you ever seen your brother like that?
No. No, kind of keeps everything inside and everything, but he was bawling like a baby.
Someone had to call Justine's parents.
Unfortunately, that was me.
Who'd you talk to?
Stephen.
Father?
Yes. I didn't want to call, and, the state police told me that, it'd be better if I did. And they was like, well, the best way to do it is, do it bluntly, get it over with.
He said, this is Jesse, Eric's brother. I'm afraid I have some terrible news. I said, well, what's happened? He said, well, it's Justine, she's gone. I said, what do you mean she's gone? Be specific. I need you to tell me, what are you saying, Jesse? He said she's dead.
I told him there had been an accident and that Justine had been killed. And from what it looked like, it was a hit and run.
And, your heart just gets ripped right out of your chest when that happens.
Yeah, you just sort of physically as well as emotionally just collapse.
Nobody should have to go through it. It's awful.
I couldn't imagine being on his end of the phone. I know what it was like from my end.
You had no answers for him?
No. I still don't have no answers for him.
News of Justine's death flies across the fields and back roads of this rural community, triggering an outpouring of grief for this young kindergarten teacher.
And my husband called me on the phone. I asked him what was wrong, and he wouldn't say anything. And when I got home, he was in tears.
Her heart was always, she wore it on her sleeve. I mean, she loved the kids.
She's a great teacher and she loved everybody.
She was a natural-born teacher.
Justine's parents, Steve and Heidi Swartz, immediately put up a $10,000 reward for clues about the hit and run. And Eric Abshire begins a local media plea of his own, looking for the killer of his wife.
I mean, if I have to do this once a week, once a month, whatever I have to do to keep it in people's eyes until whoever's responsible comes forward, then that's what I'll do.
Clearly, this beloved kindergarten teacher's life will not fade quickly in death. Even the state police seem to sense that this is going to be a special case. Lead Detective Mike Jones.
The Swartz has made these wristbands up. This is justice for Justine, and that's, in my opinion, it's a constant reminder. I know a lot of the other agents and troopers, I see them wearing them. So yeah, we're committed to finding that truth.
But the truth will not be easily found. In fact, it's about to be buried in a jumble of startling and contradictory evidence.
When we return, Justine's family questions her state of mind.
She didn't return phone calls, she didn't return emails, just almost a silence from her.
And they start their own investigation.
Did it look like there'd been an accident?
Not to me, it did.
Stay with us.
The hit-and-run death of kindergarten teacher Justine Abshire has left a hole in the heart of Barboursville, Virginia. A hole filling quickly with questions.
I didn't understand the time because she's never out at that time of night.
I don't understand why something like this could have happened.
I know she had class, but she should have been home. It just didn't make sense.
I knew that story didn't make sense, because it doesn't. It just does not make sense.
The story itself never did. No, still doesn't.
The swirl of questions leads Justine's husband, Eric, to make a prediction.
It's hard enough for one person to keep a secret. And I know deep down in my heart that somebody knows what happened, or somebody that did this will say something to somebody.
So you think there is going to be, they're going to find somebody?
Yes.
Who did this?
Yes, yes. I believe it, I hope it. Their conscience will finally get to them, and they'll be like, I just didn't take her life. I took everybody's life around her.
Including the children. For they know better than anyone what a rare gem their kindergarten teacher was. She sparkled and they sang. Her gift with the kids came naturally, and everyone who knew her knew this.
Her biggest expectation was to be a mom and to have a house, make a difference with kids.
She was just a really family-oriented. I always knew she wanted to have kids.
Justine and Eric seem to have taken a big step down that road when, just 5 months before her death, they married. Though curiously, her family says the days leading up to the wedding were marred by a change in Justine's behavior.
It was a different woman all of a sudden. What'd you see?
Justine's sister, Lauren.
Nothing. She didn't return phone calls, she didn't return emails, she wasn't doing very many things to prepare for the wedding, and that was what was different, just almost a silence from her and an act of not calling anyone back and not giving anyone information. Yeah.
And why? What do you think?
I don't know. It was so extreme.
Something wasn't right. You know, there was.
Things weren't right.
I mean, things just weren't progressing.
Right. Did she come across as someone who was either distracted, depressed? Give me some adjectives here.
Disconnected. Disconnected. I guess would be the word that I would use.
Mm-hmm. I just had the feeling that there was something else going on.
But what was it? Family and friends now wonder if it had something to do with this.
You didn't want to be married.
No, I did not. I've openly been anti-marriage my entire life.
And you didn't want any more children?
No, I did not. I didn't need a piece of paper to show somebody how much I cared about them and loved them. But it meant a lot to Justine.
Eric already had 2 children from a prior relationship, and though he promised Justine he'd have 1 more, people warned her Eric's reputation was not exactly domestic.
You don't want to date him. He's this, and this.
He's what, and what? He's a...
I don't want to say...
late... You tell me.
I don't want to say a womanizer, but somebody that if he decided he wanted to do something, he did it.
So in many ways, you two were very dissimilar.
Justine used to make the statement that I was by far the complete opposite of anybody she had ever met or definitely ever been out with. She was a lot more cultured than I was. There were lots of things that she did and introduced me to that I had never done, and there were lots of things that I introduced her to that she had never done.
So there they were, a timid, cultured kindergarten teacher who wanted a baby, an ex-Marine with a track record for playing the field.
We were opposites, but we were a fit.
What may not be fitting, though, is the hit-and-run theory for Justine's death. Virginia State Detective Mike Jones leads the investigation.
This was initially viewed as a pretty simple hit-and-run accident. You now, and I want to quote you, this is a death with suspicious circumstances.
That's correct.
That's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
What's suspicious?
It wouldn't be prudent to get into specifics, but there's a lot more questions than answers when we departed the scene that morning.
Still in good shape.
In fact, the suspicions begin precisely where Justine's life ended, on Taylorsville Road.
A little cross to hold in your pocket to remind you are not alone.
Look at that.
No injury.
I know just like Bruce.
Yeah.
Justine's family later made a trip there looking for clues. And found a neighbor who came to the scene that night.
Did you see any broken glass or any like tire marks off the side of the road or skid marks or?
No.
Did it look like there'd been an accident?
Not to me, it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I would gather her car was parked about right in here.
Justine's brother-in-law, Jesse Abshire, also came back here on the morning after the tragedy and says he found no hint of a hit-and-run.
You know, you would still think that somebody would try to jerk away from them or something, you know, maybe run off the shoulder of the road, you know, put a track in the ditch or something, but we see nothing.
Somebody knows what happened out here.
Somebody does. There's no question about it. Somebody knows. I mean, this girl did not just trip and fall in the middle of the road, bump her head, and die. That's not the way it happened.
Kindergarten teachers routinely don't ride back roads on school nights. It just seemed so uncharacteristic of what I know about her. To me, it's never set well.
Here's this young woman, scared of her own shadow, as you admit.
Yes.
Doesn't like driving alone at night.
Yes.
And that's exactly what she does. She goes out on a dark road, abandons her car.
Yes.
What sense does that make?
None. And she wasn't even near her car, and she knew that I was on the way to get her, which made even less sense. I've just looked over and over in my mind about reasons why she would leave her car knowing that I was on the way to get her.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yes.
That you don't have an answer for.
No.
So she supposedly has car trouble, pulls the car over, gets out of the car, opens the trunk for no good reason. She leaves her purse in the car. She leaves her coat in the car. She leaves her keys in the car. She leaves her door open. She walks the opposite direction from the house she can see around the bend where she can't see her car anymore on a cold, clear, still night with a full moon. She wouldn't do that.
And if she called him to say, come help me, and if she knew that he was on the way, why on earth would she get out of her car?
Eric received a telephone call from Justine, he says. And in that telephone call, Justine says, my car is not working. It's broken down. Come and get me. This is Eric's story. When you got here, was the car working?
The car was working. We since had it looked at by certified technicians, and that was found to be no mechanical defect.
Started right up.
Started up.
The cops got into that car immediately and started it up. You know that?
That's what they said. I wasn't there.
So what do you make of that?
I don't. Like I said, I mean, People have asked me that a million times. You're asking me to speak about something I have no idea about.
I mean, this is why people are suspicious, because of these circumstances.
Yes, yes, yes. I understand that. But also, I mean, you're, not just you, I mean, everybody there asked me to explain something that I have no way of explaining. I wasn't there.
The truth is that these pieces don't even add up to you, do they?
No, not at all.
With so many questions, it's not surprising that this small town began creating its own answers, right or wrong.
It was the day or 2 days after Justine's memorial service. I walked into this little restaurant, and I just had one of those, what I call mother moments, when it just like washed over me and I just lost it. And so I just burst into tears, and this woman behind the counter said, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong? Are you sick?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I just lost my daughter. You may have heard about it. She was the kindergarten teacher who was hit and killed by the car." And she looked at me and she said, "That was no hit and run. She was murdered and her husband is the prime suspect."
When we come back, suspicions mount.
Nothing is consistent with a pedestrian being struck by a car.
And does Eric have a possible motive?
If this had been ruled a hit and run, and if all the insurance paid, it would have been about 1.3, 1.4 million.
Stay with us. One year after the death of kindergarten teacher Justine Abshire, police are still searching for answers. What at first looked like a hit and run is starting to look more suspicious. And around town, Eric continues to find himself on the defensive. Here again, Jay Shadler.
It is a label that hangs like a toxic fog all over town, but heaviest over Justine's husband, Eric.
It makes the worst thing that ever happened in your life. It makes you revisit it time and time again. Every time you hear something negative, every time you hear another accusation, you relive it.
Why are they accusing you?
Honestly, because I think that they have nowhere to go. I think that they have run out of leads and they're just looking for someone to blame.
But police say they're looking for evidence of a hit and run and not finding it. Lack of evidence at the crime scene is now coupled with evidence from Justine's injuries. Virginia Special Agent Mike Jones.
Nothing is consistent with a pedestrian being struck by a car.
That's quite a statement.
Standing pedestrian.
Nothing is consistent with a pedestrian being...
Standing pedestrian.
They don't think it's a hit and run.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was not a hit and run, what are you left with?
Something a lot scarier.
Investigators were looking for a motive, and Justine's parents believe Eric had one.
Potentially a lot of insurance.
A lot,
Yeah.
a lot, especially if it was a car accident.
How much would that have been?
If this had been ruled a hit and run, and if all the insurance paid, it would have been about 1.3, 1.4 million, I think, somewhere in that range. I think, you know, people can understand why that type of information would make us uneasy.
But Eric's version of any insurance benefit is very different.
There was an insurance policy?
Yes.
How much?
$150,000.
$150,000. Have you tried to collect?
No.
Are you will?
I've made no effort. It's pointless to me. It's like I made a statement to a friend of mine. I'll file bankruptcy before I would collect on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take these 2 bags out.
On this night, the 1-year anniversary of her death, the town will hold a vigil for Justine. Her parents are on their way to the vigil from Tennessee, carrying their memories and suspicions with them.
Even before we got on the airplane to go to Virginia, you know, and we had very sketchy information then. Her car broke down, you know, Eric got there and she was dead. I mean, I remember even then, just, you know, this isn't right, it doesn't make sense.
And then when we had the meeting with the police, you know, they just basically came right out and said, "We think this is suspicious."
So one of the first big questions was, why would she be out at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Yes. On a school night.
On a school night.
Once again, Special Agent Mike Jones.
Do you have an answer for that yet?
No.
But Eric does. He's admitted from the very start that he and Justine had a rare quarrel that night. Earlier in the evening, he had gone to this hospital to check on his mother, who was gravely ill. And he says he returned home at approximately 12:30 in the morning and says Justine wanted to talk about the hospital visit. He did not.
And we got into a debate, argument, whatever you want to call it, about me not having to always keep everything bottled up inside, that it's okay to talk about your feelings. And I made the comment that sometimes you just want to be alone. And she made the statement, well, maybe she needed to be alone too. And I said, maybe you do. And she left.
Had she ever walked out in the middle of the night in a huff like that before?
No, not while I was there, no. No, but
so this was an unbelievably strange.
Yes, but then again, arguing for us was strange. Honestly, I didn't think about anything. I went in there and cut the TV on and started watching TV.
You didn't think about anything? Your wife has never gone out in a huff before.
Justine,
it's the middle of the night.
Yes.
You didn't think about anything?
Honestly, I thought that she would walk right back in the house, or that she would be right back. She would go to the store and she would come back.
But Justine never did come back. Instead, according to Eric, she calls him from her phone. Phone records show someone placed a call from Justine's phone at 1:19 in the morning.
When you first came up to Justine,
yes,
what was her condition and position?
The main thing I remember is that she was laying there, and that I remember her leg was laying under her, folded up behind her, because I remember that I thought that would be uncomfortable for her, so I straightened it out. And then besides that, she was just laying there.
Sources close to the case say investigators have several working theories.
There is the possibility that this event was staged, in which case they placed the body, someone placed the body there.
Well, that's one of those investigative specifics that we're not going to comment on.
Right.
I remember feeling this like wave of nausea, just because it was too horrible to comprehend. And then if you start thinking about, just in your own head, okay, if this wasn't an accident and somebody had to have planned it, and there are vehicles involved and all this other stuff, then there's likely more than one person involved. And then, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Drawing closer to tonight's vigil, Justine's parents use every spare moment to press their case and catch a killer.
So I'm calling in. I'm supposed to be doing a radio interview with Mariana Robert.
Appearing on local media, they campaign to jumpstart an investigation that seems to be going nowhere.
The family made a decision to increase that reward to $50,000, and also to get a little more public about her case, and also to voice some concerns we had about her husband.
A mix of concerns, speculation, and rumors about this case have been rampant ever since The Hook, a local newspaper, began its own investigation into Justine's death. The paper's website is chock-a-block with theories.
You will be condemned in the eyes of the community. Posted by Astonished.
Be strong, Eric. The truth has a way of coming out. Posted by Saddened.
I believe that there are a lot of reasons people think he has something to do with Justine's death. Posted by Maze.
People just being outraged that this has happened and hasn't been solved, people feeling frustrated.
But if it was such a small town, and you said you had such a great relationship with Justine, why doesn't that sort of flower in the community? Why doesn't that come out as, my God, that would never happen, those two people were in love?
Because everybody making the accusations are people that didn't know us. And they're making judgment calls on me and my life with Justine, from absolutely knowing nothing about myself or her.
What is known about their private life is paradoxical. Friends say they rarely went out, but seemed to genuinely enjoy their time together, watching TV and playing video games. Justine's quiet, withdrawn nature stood in stark contrast to Eric's.
If Justine were here describing you, what kind of words would she use?
Arrogant, proud, just before all this, never a care in the world, just happy-go-lucky. I mean, I was just out there. I was living life.
Describe your temper.
I've always had a temper.
You liked fighting a little bit.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And once again, none of these are things that I've never denied and tried to walk away from in my life.
In fact, Eric openly admits to having been charged, though not convicted, at least twice with various assaults and batteries.
Were you ever violent with Justine?
No.
But you were violent with other people?
Other men.
Only men?
Yes.
She opened the door and they start getting into it again and yelling and screaming.
But Justine's sister Lauren says in 2000 she witnessed Eric being violent with Justine in an apartment she and Justine shared.
All of a sudden he pushed his way in and he pushed her up against the wall and, held her there. And she, was just terrified. I told him, you better get your hands off of her. I'm going to call the police right now.
Just a year earlier, another incident.
Her sister says that you were so violent once you put your fist right through an apartment wall.
No, that's not true at all.
Did you?
No. I threw a phone one time and hit a wall.
Based upon this accumulating evidence, police asked Eric to take a polygraph. Calling them unreliable, a lawyer friend advised Eric not to, a decision that infuriated Justine's parents.
If they thought that their daughter had had a happy relationship with you,
yes,
they wouldn't be coming out now accusing you of this?
It wasn't until after that I wouldn't take a lie detector test that their smear campaign started.
But that's an amazing leap, Eric.
Yes.
They may not have had a relationship with you at all, but the reality is, for them to suddenly be saying, this is the guy who probably killed our daughter.
Well, I couldn't say that it came more out of left field. There was nobody that was, I couldn't imagine what they were going through, but to suddenly go from being upset to being accusing me.
It's against this backdrop of suspicions and accusations that tonight's vigil begins.
As I pray to think about that in a moment of silence before we pray. Let's all bow our heads and close our eyes, please.
Justine's parents have arrived from Tennessee, and Eric shows up too.
Eric, if you'd like to say something, you're welcome to say something.
In a moment, a remarkable conversation captured in the shadows between Justine's father and her husband.
Just look at me one more time. Look me right in the eye and don't look away and don't blink. You didn't hurt my daughter.
We'll be right back. November 3rd, 2007. It's been 1 year since Justine Abshire was found dead.
Justine may not be with us here on earth, Lord, but she is here in remembrance.
On this evening, as her life is remembered by family and friends, the mysterious manner of her death is also in attendance.
This is a celebration, but we also want to remind people that this was a crime and it's still unsolved. So keep that in mind too.
The Justine that I remember was a self-conscious preteen with braces and curly hair that she desperately wanted to be long and straight like the other girls. She had not yet discovered the beautiful woman growing inside her.
My name is Lauren, and I am Justine's younger sister. This is a poem that Justine wrote on October 3rd, 2006, 1 month before she died. As time goes, my presence will become known far and wide. I am an actor behind the scenes, waiting patiently for my part to begin. I really didn't expect to be upset, and I don't think that I would have been, but I saw Eric in the back walk in right before things started. It made me angry that he was there.
Eric, I want to thank you for talking to me. You don't have to do this.
This moment marks the first time in months that Eric has stood face to face with Justine's father or mother. When they began openly accusing him of being involved in Justine's death, he broke off all contact until now.
We're not out to get you. We're not.
It became a slander campaign against me and no longer became just wanting the truth. It became wanting me for some reason.
But that's not us. That's us expressing doubts, concerns, suspicion.
Okay, well, y'all could express them to me instead of going to a paper that will print anything.
Well, we did, but it didn't go too well.
It's because she started cussing me on the phone and accusing me of killing my wife. How did she think it was going to go?
Well,
how the hell did y'all think that conversation was going to go?
Well, Eric, let me ask you a question. What do you think happened?
For nearly 20 minutes, the two men stand toe-to-toe on a darkened street, unreeling an even darker conversation.
I'm going to ask you some more hard questions, all right?
Ask me anything you want.
There were no other women before, or at least since you got married?
No, not while we were still married. After Justine passed away, yes, I got drunk one night and I did sleep with somebody after she died. But no, the whole time we were married, I never once cheated on Justine, never.
Just look at me one more time. Look me right in the eye and don't look away and don't blink. You didn't hurt my daughter.
I never would hurt your daughter.
According to Eric, he last heard from Justine at 1:19 a.m. when he says she called from her cell phone to report her car had broken down. But there is no proof that Justine herself made that call. And when police arrive, her car showed no signs of mechanical problems. It started immediately. Though family and friends insist Justine would never have left the safety of her car to walk alone on a darkened back road, her body was discovered 200 yards, that's 2 football fields away.
Orange County 911, where's your emergency?
On the 911 call made by a neighbor at 1:57 a.m., Eric reportedly describes the tragedy as a likely hit-and-run accident.
Hendersonville Road, he just came out and said his wife just got hit by a car.
But police and witnesses searching for signs of a hit-and-run found no skid marks, no car debris, and little blood on the road. What's more, according to police, Justine's injuries are inconsistent with being hit by a vehicle while standing. All of which brings us back to Eric, and the moments immediately after he says he discovered her.
When you first came up to Justine,
Yes.
did you know if she was dead?
No, I didn't. To me, I didn't think she was.
Did you take her off the road?
No, I didn't.
But if you thought she was still alive, why would you have left her in the road?
Well, that's not the type of thing you come upon every day. I really didn't know what I should do. I mean, I had the road blocked with the bike. I didn't want to risk moving her.
Why didn't you use your cell phone?
Honestly, I didn't think about it. I didn't even realize that I had my cell phone until probably an hour later.
Again, you understand the inconsistency here in your, because you say you want to be with her at that moment.
Yes.
You think she's still alive.
Yes.
But you don't reach for your cell phone, which would allow you to stay with her.
I didn't realize I had it with me. I mean, at the time, I've sit here, I've just come around the corner, I've just found my wife in the road. You know, I can't say that I was thinking the clearest in the world. There are lots of things I probably should have done, but that's not what I did do.
About 20 months after the accident, a source close to this investigation has revealed a number of new pieces of information,
indicating that authorities now believe that Justine did not die on this road, but was killed elsewhere, and only after she put up a fight.
We want to ask you about a couple of new pieces of information in this investigation.
Okay.
When we return, we take the new information back to Eric.
How do you react to the fact that your wife may have been brutally beaten?
Justine Abshire's death has always been a tragedy. How she died remains a crime.
I'm convinced there are people who know things they have not yet shared with the police, and they've got to decide what kind of person they want to be, what kind of world they want to live in. You know, this isn't just keeping some secret, oh, Johnny stole a cookie. This is murder we're talking about.
According to a source familiar with the medical evidence, Justine suffered 113 separate injuries, not including broken bones, 23 wounds to her head alone, and her pelvis was broken in 3 places. Despite the massive trauma, there was reportedly little blood at the scene and no forensic evidence of dirt, mud, or grease on her body, which might have signaled she was struck by a vehicle. In addition, some of Justine's wounds were reportedly defensive, suggesting she was protecting herself from one or more attackers.
Based partly on the nature and degree of those terrible injuries, authorities are pursuing a number of new theories about how Justine died, including the possibility that she was bludgeoned to death before her body was brought here. In other words, a murder was made to look like a hit and run.
We want to ask you about a number of new pieces of information.
Okay.
We return to Virginia to talk with Eric about the new information.
Do you consider it a possibility that she was, in fact, killed somewhere else?
No.
You don't?
No, not whatsoever. For the simple fact of, I know what time I spoke with her, I know what time I got there. Nobody had time to take her somewhere else, kill her, bring her back.
Maybe the most unsettling piece of information, the new piece of information, is that this source is telling us that she suffered defensive wounds. In other words, she was protecting herself.
I haven't heard that from anybody.
Did you kill her?
No.
Well, if he had nothing to do with it, then I have apologies and forever thinking he did, and sympathy because he's having to live this nightmare and having everyone looking at him.
Eric's brother, Jesse.
What would you say Eric's state of mind is right now?
Scared.
And why is he scared if he has nothing to be scared about?
It's no big secret that if authorities want people to believe something, and if authorities want to make somebody guilty of something, they can do so.
In fact, according to Jesse, the police have already raised the possibility that Justine's killing was a family affair.
Have they ever accused you of being part of a conspiracy to kill Justine?
To me?
To
No.
you?
No. To my fiance? Yes.
Jesse says police have been trying in vain to link the two brothers based on this theory.
Either Eric or you or both killed Justine. Take her out there to the road, make it look like she'd been hit, then you call Eric from her cell phone saying, come get me. That's a theory.
No. I was at home in bed with my fiance and my child. Never spoke to Eric that day. Never seen him that day.
Did you have anything to do with this?
No. I don't know what happened to her. I wish I did.
You know, both Eric and his brother Jesse have told me that the cops have got to find somebody, and they're the scapegoats.
Well, the only thing I care about is the truth.
You don't have anybody else. It was a black night, rural road, and a hit and run took place perhaps, and they're the ones who are being accused.
Well, their good name needs to be preserved as much as anybody else's.
Well, they'll tell you point blank it's not being preserved. Are you closer today to knowing what happened to Justine than you were a year ago?
Every minute that goes by, we're closer.
You feel that way?
I feel confident, yes.
Eric will be the first to admit that suspicions about him as the killer go hand in hand with his long reputation as a man with a temper. In 2008, more than a year after Justine's death, Eric's ex-wife filed a complaint against him.
There was a restraining order put out on you by Allison Crawford.
Yes.
Mother of your children.
Yes.
Why?
Because I cursed her and we got into a verbal disagreement. And I lost my temper and I said some things I probably shouldn't have said.
So you didn't do anything physical?
Nothing.
The temporary restraining order on behalf of his children's mother cites reasonable grounds that Eric committed family abuse, with probable danger of further such offense. It has since expired, and the woman has not asked for an extension. Still,
why would she have felt danger?
I guess you would have to speak with her on that.
No, I'm talking to you.
I don't know. I've never once put my hands on Allison. I have never once physically assaulted Allison. It was a verbal disagreement.
Eric walks a fine line now. He knows that the questions about this tragedy will not vanish as long as he himself remains a mystery. Is he a manipulating killer or a misunderstood victim? As for the possibility that Justine was beaten and murdered, well, this is how Eric responds.
This new information that possibly suggests such a terrible end, you know, a brutality that no one expected.
Mm-hmm.
Can your heart accept any of that? Can it do anything with that?
No. Because she was the softest, kind-heartedest, just easygoing, thought the world was a great place person. So I don't even let myself entertain the thought that her end could have come like that. I don't do it.
You can do that.
I have to do that. It's the only thing that keeps me going.
While the pain of losing her will never disappear, neither will the joy she brought to those around her. Even as a child, Justine had a cheerful spirit.
My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
That's why, when she grew up, she became such a wonderful kindergarten teacher. And in our memories, kindergarten teachers never die.
I've always believed that when you leave this earth, when you die, that as long as people remember you, you live.
But sadly, how Justine died also lingers in the memory.
We're not stopping until this thing is solved and until everybody involved is brought to justice.
People aren't saying things because they're scared.
I think whoever did this, there should be consequences.
Every day I get up and I think, oh boy, today's going to be the day. You know, the phone's going to ring and there's been an arrest.
We encourage anyone, including Mr. Abshire, to come in and help find out what happened to his wife.
Has he been cooperative?
He's cooperated. We just would encourage further cooperation.
Are you prepared for the possibility of getting a knock on the door by the cops and saying you're under arrest?
Yes, I've lived the last year of my life with that.
Do you believe that Eric was involved in Justine's death?
Yes, I do.
There are so many questions that he can't answer for me and for my family. And of course, it's the last thing that I would want to believe, because I know how much Justine loved him and she wanted to be his wife.
What do you miss?
Everything. Absolutely everything, from the silliness of her as a person to what annoyed me so much then, I miss now. Like, she had this jacket that she rubbed every night in her sleep. She would sit there and rub that damn jacket together. And it used to annoy me so bad. And now I miss it.
What do you miss most about Justine?
Sitting on the couch, talking away, eating junk food, and it's so weird because it's been really hard on our family, and when things are hard with our family, we would always call each other. And so I miss that, just having, you know, my right-hand woman.
Plenty of sunshine headed my way.
I miss that gentleness. Yeah. I miss that. I miss her. I miss everything about her. And I'm also really sad and devastated by the fact that she never got a chance to have any of the things that she deserved to have.
Zippity-doo, zippity-day. We love you, Dad, and we always love you. Bye! Bye!
In 2010, 4 years after Justine's death, authorities arrested Eric Abshire, charging him with first-degree murder. He was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. As of 2014, all of his appeals have been denied. I'm John Quinones. Please join us next time for another edition of 2020 on ID.